Welcome back to another episode of Be Our Guest here on Musical Theater Radio. I am your host, as always, Jean-Paul Jovanov. On this program, we have spoken with people around the world about musical theater. People from Mexico. We've talked about Korean musical theater. Well, today we are heading over to Europe to talk about the state of musical theater in Finland. And we have three incredible guests lined up. So let's jump right in and welcome Mikael, Haavisto, Reeta, Vestman, and Johanna Telander. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm looking forward to this. It's going to be a little bit different. I know nothing, I will totally admit, about Finnish musical theater. I went on and I tried to do some research, but I'll be honest, A, couldn't find that much, and B, it was in Finnish, most of it, so I didn't have time to throw it all in.
I'm intrigued. What did you find?
Well, let's see what you like. Some of them I don't even know if I can pronounce, so but we'll see what happens. But before we get into any of that stuff, we got to know who you are. So I always ask for a 30-second bio of my guests. So Johanna, you've done this before. So I'm going to start with you and give them a few seconds to think about it. So who are you in 30 seconds?
Okay, this is the hardest part, the 30 seconds, right? You know, I like to chat.
Yes.
So I'm Johanna Telander. I am the composer of Kalevala the Musical, which is a musical that we've been developing for the last 5 years. I live in New York in Tuxedo, and I'm originally from Helsinki, Finland, although Mikael knows that we've traveled around quite a bit and also spent some time in Sweden and the Netherlands.
Perfect. Mikael, let's jump to you then.
Well, I'm going to do exactly 30 seconds. I just put a timer on.
Wow.
I'm a 36-year-old freelance actor. I mostly do musicals. I haven't counted it for a while, but I think I've been in something like somewhere between 15 or 20 shows. I've done it. Usually I do ensemble stuff because I'm too young to do the dad parts. As you can hear from my voice, I'm a baritone, but that'll happen someday. And that is 4, 3, 2, 1. That's it.
You are literally the first person to time it. And I thank you for that. Reeta, you.
So I'm a freelance musician and actress from Finland, from Helsinki, or actually now based in Sipoo, which is a half an hour drive from Helsinki, our capital. I do mainly theater, just musicals, and then some TV, some voiceovers and stuff like that. I graduated from Royal Academy of Music in London from the musical theater department. And since then I've done 11 female leads in musicals. So
11. That's
quite a lot of shows. Yeah.
Cool. Well, thank you. Getting to know you and all, and that's wonderful. So let's talk about what it means. Let's jump in. What does Finnish musical theater mean to you? How does it differ from anything else, or does it? I don't know who wants to take that first.
I think what
start with
yeah,
go ahead.
mostly like what the theaters mostly have in their repertoire here is West End and Broadway shows.
Yeah.
With Finnish translations. And then we have some new musicals, some new Finnish musicals, but they're quite recent. I mean, it's been only maybe 7 to 10 years that they have actually done like new musicals.
I've been in the business now for, I'd say, something like 17 years. And I'd say when I started, it was more like we had more originals, or you could say they weren't really musicals. It was more about music theater. And then came the Broadway West End stuff. And then it took all over. We only had those. And now it starts again that we're starting to do new special ones, completely original Finnish ones. And there was just an article that in the biggest theaters of Finland, only was it 2 were doing originals out of 15. And Reeta is the leading lady in one of them.
Yes.
And but for the rest, they were all just basically stuff that's been already on Broadway or West End.
But I do have to say, and I completely can verify what you both said, that what was it that you said, Reeta? When do you feel like musical theater even started being produced in Finland? Was that 10 years ago? 17 years ago? Which one of you said that? One of you.
No, probably 10 years ago.
10 years ago. And I would verify that, because when I left, which we all know has been more than 10 years ago.
100 years ago.
100 years. Okay, I'm not that old, but I did leave quite a long time ago. There was literally nothing being produced that even resembled musical theater. It was mainly straight plays or plays with music or plays with musical performances or operas. So I do feel like there's been a massive revolution when it comes to just the appreciation of musical theater happening in Finland.
Obviously, you have your own traditions for theater already. Why do you think not just Finland, but all more countries around the world don't have that type of musical theater background? And what was the trigger, you think, to start that?
That's a hard one.
I know.
I think hype did start something. You both remember
1994.
Hype? Yes,
I was 8 years old. Yeah,
it kind of became a popular phenomenon. It was a Swedish Svenska Teatern production that I even mentioned to you, Jean-Paul, when we talked last time, and it definitely inspired me to love musical theater and want to study it and find out more about it. And I think that was definitely a big milestone. But are there any other productions that jump into mind for Reeta or Mikael?
I think Hype was the first one that was like meant for younger people, and before that we had like this cabaret or music hall styled influence, like Tony Edelman and all these kind of older composers that were doing like plays with songs, but they weren't really considered musicals because the music wasn't such a big part of them, but they were more like revues or cabaret performances. But I think we have to thank these directors of younger generation that have really made musicals big, and then also these new musical theater composers, and then of course actors. I mean, people are more interested in musical theater now in Finland, and because we still don't have a possibility to do a master's degree in musical theater, even though we produce most musicals in northern countries at the moment, because we have plenty of summer theaters and they all have musicals during summer. So it's crazy that we still don't have a university program for musical theater, and that's why people go abroad to educate themselves, and they bring back the knowledge to Finland and they educate each other, and then it has become kind of a new phenomenon to really be interested in musical theater. And I think also
directors as well.
Yes, definitely.
That's actually a really, really great point, because maybe, as Jean-Paul was asking about the milestones or what may have changed the way that we view musical theater, maybe it started with the European Union and the fact that it was easier to go abroad to study and to be more influenced. Of course, also internet access, being able to access shows that you've not been able to access before, because we all grew up in an era where, you know, it wasn't that easy to find obscure musical recordings of shows, unless it was Sound of Music or Phantom of the Opera or the really, really big hits. I don't, maybe I'm wrong, but I don't remember being able to go to a library and find, you know, Victoria or something, you know, or Dr. Zhivago, or, you know, it wasn't that easy to find things that were not massively produced all over the world. So maybe the you know, internet revolution, and then also just the European Union made it more accessible for us. What do you think?
Well, that's true.
Definitely,
I think, like in the beginning of the 90s, Finland became a lot more international. We started to get, how would you say, we were squeezed between the West and the East, because we were a neighbor in Russia. And on the other side, we had Sweden, and we, for a very long time before the Soviet Union collapsed, we really were struggling with our identity. Which way should we be going? And then we chose West when we got into the European Union, and we also internationalized ourselves, probably also in theater and music theater. We still have a lot of people actually who went over to the Soviets to study, like in the 80s.
Yeah.
And I've heard that was a hard school when they did that, because they only taught them in Russian. If it didn't matter, do you speak Russian or not? But that was the only language they taught people there. But
That's an
but
interesting.
And I think one thing that has really made a huge difference is the appreciation towards our field nowadays, because I can see that these really old school, established, respected directors, as Kari Heiskanen, who directs now the the one new musical that I'm at, he's been asked to direct a musical for more than 10 years at the Helsinki City Theatre, and he has always said no. And now even he is starting to realize that this is something that people nowadays appreciate, and that brings younger generation to theaters. And now all these older directors are realizing that, hey, maybe I should start to direct musicals as well. So it's just not just the drama that or the straight plays that get people together and that are respected in
when
theater.
I was doing my first my first professional musical, that was back in 2009, I think, and we were starting rehearsals in Lahden in Lahti City Theatre. And on the first day of rehearsals, I was so excited. I'm finally going to be in a musical. And so I was there 10 minutes before the rehearsal starts. And I sit down and we get handed over our notes. And then 5 minutes after we started rehearsing, this monthly paid actor comes up. He blasts open the door and he starts just saying, "Why do they always put me in these beep musicals every time?" Because people really, like, actors didn't appreciate musicals. They thought it was like low-level theater with some stupid singing and dancing there. So I remember he wasn't happy about it. And they made him do a musical again.
And I think that is actually such a good point, because I think that's what's changed in Finland. Like Reeta said, that's what's changed. So it's not just the appreciation of the field itself, or the appreciation of the fact that audiences want to see musicals, that musicals truly are the draw when it comes to bringing people into the theater. But they're also starting to understand that, wow, actually dancing and singing and acting at the same time is not that easy. It takes an incredible triple threat to pull it off. And directing musicals and making musicals happen on a larger scale is not a piece of cake.
And the more we do West End and Broadway stuff here, the more people are realizing what it requires. And then the older generation of actors that were taught at the theater academy, and they never received the kind of vocal education or the dance skills or anything that they need for musicals, they are realizing that they need to re-educate themselves, and theaters realize that they need to hire freelancers because the staff in the house, because we have like monthly paid actors in most of our repertoire theaters in Finland. So it's really like high competition nowadays for freelancers, and then it's kind of time to for the older actors to reevaluate themselves as actors. Like, am I capable of doing this stuff that they play in theaters nowadays, or should I change my way of doing things, because that's what they need to do most of the time.
Well, the game has definitely changed.
Definitely,
past 15 years.
Can you talk about the difference between freelance actors and institutionalized theater? Because that's something that I think Jean-Paul and your listeners, Jean-Paul, would be very interested in. This is such a massive difference to the way that things are run
Yes.
in most other places. And it does have to do with the East meets West tradition. So can you talk about that? Because you said you started introducing yourself by saying you're a freelance actor,
Yes.
which
Yes.
is interesting because here, if you ask someone, you just say you're an actor. Everyone
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
freelance.
And you always, like in Broadway and West End, you are hired for production.
Yes.
But here, you can go to work in a theater and be an kiinnitetty institutionalized
monthly paid.
monthly
Yes,
paid.
it could be
After
salaried.
like 1 year or 2 year or even lifetime contract actually at the theater, but it's only for very few people. That means that they are doing maybe 5 plays at the same time. Like they are always performing maybe 4 and then rehearsing 1, and always after a premiere, the next the next morning after you open the doors, you start to rehearse the next piece. So it's crazy. It's so crazy. And at the same time, there are like so many unemployed freelance actors, and there can be like 300 girls auditioning for one female part, and that's like our reality as freelance actors here, which is the same, but it's in abroad. But here the difference between these monthly paid and freelancers is huge, because they are overworking, and then well, I'm lucky to have been working since I graduated, but I mean it's not that easy. It's really hard getting here.
For those that don't understand, you're attached to a theater when you
Yes.
are a monthly paid salaried actor.
Yes.
So you're attached to a theater house, and you are
Yes.
placed in the productions, no matter what the productions are. So for instance, you could have 4 plays and you could have a musical, but because you're a salaried actor and you're attached to that theater, you are placed into those roles, regardless whether they fit you or not.
And you don't get to apply for a role or a job if you're attached, but they just
tell you what to do. So let's just take a small back step. I'd say that 90% of Finnish theaters are on taxpayer money. So they work, they're municipal.
They are
so
financed
we call
by
them
state. Yes.
Financed by state. So well, all of them are called something city theater, like let's say Toronto City Theater or New York City Theater, or like every city has one big one. And the biggest cities, which are Helsinki and Tampere, they have 2, which are Tampereen Teatteri and Tampereen Työväen Teatteri. Well, that's probably hard to a lot of T's. And then Helsinki has also a few different ones. And then we are also a bilingual country, so we also have Swedish-speaking theaters, one in Helsinki and one here where I live in Turku, which is the 3rd biggest city in Finland,
and one in Vaasa,
and one in Vaasa. So we have also these state-funded Swedish theaters here, which also employs a lot of Swedish people. So a lot of people come from our beloved neighbor. But these city theaters work that they have their repertoire theater. So on the same stage, they change the play every night, or sometimes they do the same play for 2 nights, but usually like they change it like in the evening after the show is off. They take all the sets away, the whole scenography, and then they start putting up the next show. So if you're a monthly paid actor, you could be doing on Tuesday, you could be doing Mousetrap. On Wednesday, you'll be doing Fiddler on the Roof. On Thursday, you'll be doing Hamlet, and so on and so on. And in that way, you might be doing 7 shows a week. So basically, you're doing just as much as on Broadway or West End, but you change the play. Which
you're rehearsing during the days. So it's
and in the mornings you're rehearsing. So we have this. We call it a two-sided day. So from 10 to 2, 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. you're rehearsing, and from 6 p.m. till 10 p.m. you're doing the play. So you always have like 2 work days a day. If you're freelance, you only do 1 show. So let's say like Reeta
but
is
I
right
do
now.
2 shows now at the same time.
But you're doing 3 shows.
But in different theaters,
Different theaters, She's traveling a lot.
Jean-Paul, my head is spinning. I don't know about you, but
I've I've heard of I talk to people in England and they're very subsidized. Not as much, I guess, as Finland, with you said 90% of the theaters are public, which I love. I'm okay with that concept, but to a number of talk to somebody in the States, that's insane. That would just be nobody spending their money on that.
Yeah.
And it's very interesting. We do have a few rep theaters here in Canada, but not to that extent of 4 different shows. They might be doing 2 in rep, but
so also how it works is always the year begins in September. Let's say that's usually when the first premiere is, and the last show is usually in May. So they do always 1 year at the time, the same show, or like a little bit under a year for 10 months.
Wow.
And then for the summer, everyone is on vacation for 2
or
months.
summer theater.
Or summer theater, which is its whole different culture. That's that we could do a whole podcast about that. So it's basically outside theater, and from that 90% are amateurs. Oh, wow. And it's a whole cultural thing.
And then another thing that differs is that we don't have this workshopping stage for the new musicals. We just
no, we do not.
They order a new musical from a writer and a composer, and then we rehearse it, and then we play it. We never workshop it. We don't play it in different theaters. We just do it there, and
there's been some workshopping now. People have been waking up on that, but it's just really marginal still. Also, one thing that differs a lot from let's say from West End or Broadway is that we always set the date for the premiere.
Yes.
No matter what, that's the date it happens.
Yeah. No matter how ready it is.
Even how catastrophically everything goes bad, people have been miscast, nothing works, but it doesn't matter. The premiere is on this and this day, and that's when the show will go on. And
but then I have to say, but there is an advantage, and it's that our rehearsal periods are quite long.
Yeah, usually a standard, I think, is 10 weeks.
Wow.
10 weeks, 5 days a week.
Sometimes.
I'm so glad that you mentioned this, because now that you've both been involved in Kalevala, you've seen how different it is. When we go around and we tell people that we've been developing Kalevala the musical for 5 years, which is 100% normal here, because we know how it goes. You have to think of it project-based. You raise money for every single stage reading, workshop, whatever it may be, concert, performance, everything starts project-based, and you take it one step at a time. And it's not a 1 + 1, 2 kind of scenario.
Yes.
When you explain that in Finland, it's completely foreign to them, correct? So maybe you can kind of explain how that's been going over, since you've had a chance to kind of experience what it's like here, trying to explain that to your colleagues. What's their reaction, or what's their experience to learning from your experiences abroad?
Well, I think they don't understand the workshopping or the thing that we first do, the concert versions of it. Like, they're asking, like, when can we come and see the show that you're doing? It's like, no, we're developing it. It's on process. And then, and also the thing, well, nowadays some shows are starting to tour in Finland, and finally they are making they first make a Helsinki version of Kinky Boots, and then it travels to Tampere. This is completely new. This is completely new. Like, it's always been like, this show is for this theater, and then it ends, then it closes.
And if it's sold out, it's sold out.
And then they do the same musical, but totally different production with totally different cost, totally different director and stuff, creative team. So it's been interesting to say that we are trying to get this show here, and then probably after that we're playing it here, and then we're doing this stage reading version, and then we're doing this concert version, and they're like, what are those kind of versions?
I'd say the most basic journey from the idea of musical until it gets into a premiere is that CEO of a theater thinks that I would
Mm.
like to see a musical about this person. So then he contacts a writer and a composer and says that you guys should collaborate and make me a musical. So then he pays for them. They make a musical about it. Just the two of them. No testing, no workshopping. No, they just do some music and some dialogue together. And when it's done, they say to that head of the theater that now we're ready. Then they cast it, and then we start rehearsing it, and then we do the premiere. So there's no testing, no workshopping. It's just let's get into the deep end.
Just dive in. So it's
dive
so
in.
interesting because we talked about this a little bit off air before, but I do find like that it's two sides of the same coin. And in one end, in Finland, you might have a set amount of funds. You have a theater, you have funds, you have a place,
That's true.
but you have finite amount of time, and you just whatever it is, it is. Here, you have all the time in the world. You have the time. Well, I hope that I will be done developing Kalevala in 30 years. Okay. I really don't think I can do this much longer.
Yeah,
But the
I
point
understand.
is, you have the time to really make sure that it is what it needs to be. And you have time to learn from your mistakes. You have time to do all these things. However, funds is always an issue. You are literally knocking on doors and trying to find people that believe in your project at every single stage of the game. So that is the biggest opposite conundrum that we're discussing here, I think. And what I find interesting about Finland and musical theater scene in Finland right now is the whole East meets West, and the past meets the future. And I really feel like you two are very fortunate because you're standing on the cusp of something that is very, very new. And I'm interested in seeing what will happen in Finland in 10 years, whether institutionalized theater is still a thing, or whether there is a way that this freelance world and this theater world continue to live in this marriage. I don't know. What do you guys
Say
think?
the biggest theaters, let's say Helsinki, Turku, and Tampere, they are clearly trying to get a little bit rid of the monthly paid actor thing. Like when people are getting retired, they aren't hiring new ones there, and they are keeping that part of the budget to hire more freelancers. That's been happening in the past 5 years, I'd say. Like the Turku City Theater, where Reeta is right now doing. You're doing
Bridges of Madison County.
Yeah, you're doing that there. So when I started working there in 2013, I think we had something like maybe 15 to 20 monthly paid actors there. And now I think it's down to 8.
Wow.
Yeah.
So
that
so
is definitely the trend to not give these monthly contracts and to keep people as freelancers. And even if they get a contract that might be 1 year or maximum 2 years, and I don't think they do anymore these, or it's very rare to get like this life-term contract to theater. And because nowadays we are starting to get these companies, these production companies that are doing shows in theaters. So it's not just that they're not just hiring a director or like they are not doing the puzzle of these creative teams. They hire a company and they hire the team. So it's really changing, and I think it's changing to become more and more Broadway or Western style, that they are doing productions and not just this repertoire theater. Like you've been in Mamma Mia in
it was a Mamma
in Messukeskus. Yeah, and this fair center in Helsinki. So
that was a wild
they are not like shows are not done only in theaters anymore. They can be done in all kinds of stages and or venues. Yeah,
it's fascinating how again, from being over here, hearing how the theater system works and how the actors are hired and all that sort of thing. Have you found with this slow evolution, this change, is there a pushback from some of the old guard in the way the theaters are run? And because it is state funded, how do you, how is that slowly moving forward? And what kind of hybrid do you think will come out of it? Because you are taking influences from West End and Broadway, and you have your own traditions. It might be interesting from us over here to hear about this and go, oh, maybe this is a direction we could take some of what you're doing already. And Johanna was correct. You know, you are on the cusp. You are the first generation, we'll say, of change, and it is exciting. It's difficult, but it is exciting. So I don't know if there was a question in there. I don't even remember. But
I think the question that you said was, is there something that our traditions could, or not our traditions, but you know, musical theater in Canada, musical theater in the US, is there something that we could learn from the Finnish way of doing things?
Yeah.
You know, because that is a really cool question. I want to know. Can you tell me, what can we learn from you?
Yeah.
In Finland?
Well, maybe longer periods of rehearsing. I don't know. Maybe that's something. But then again, it's the question of the funding, question of the money, because time is money. And yeah.
Well, also one thing about that, the whole budget comes from the taxes, is that they have. It's been changing a little bit, like in the past few years, but let's say that 5 years ago, you could see a Broadway musical and you wouldn't have to pay more than 25 euros for it. So that was the whole point of the tax-paying thing, that even though the production, probably the tickets should be somewhere around 200 euros, like on Broadway or West End, or dollars or pounds or whatever they are there, shillings. So we use the tax. That's why the tax money comes in, is the idea that every man should be able to afford going to a musical, that it won't be just for the elite and for the people who can afford to pay the tickets. So that's the whole idea why the state is putting all that money into theaters. Because if it's a private company, they have to put up the prices so high that it's only for the few who can pay it.
But that has changed as well.
That has changed.
In Finland, like nowadays, the tickets in Helsinki City Theatre musicals can be close to 100 euros a ticket.
I just paid for me and my wife 240 euros for Kinky Boots.
Like
2 years ago, and that
So
was
it's-
just weird for someone in Finland, because usually you pay somewhere between 20 or 60 euros per ticket. So,
and I just listened to this podcast about Finnish musical theater, and it said that the ticket prices has exploded. Like they are 103% more, like higher than they used to be 10 years ago. So in 10 years, it has exploded. But another thing about, I mean, what you get as an actor from doing a musical, I think that is something that differs a lot from West End or Broadway, because usually the leads get massive amount of money, and then the ensemble workers get very
next to nothing.
Peanuts.
Yeah.
Peanuts. So I think in Finland, the paying is quite equal, the salaries. Like it can be like maximum, like we don't talk about thousands because nobody gets thousands. But I mean, it can be like 50 euros difference, and that in our world is considered quite a big difference in salary. But then in West End, I hear that some like leads can get maybe 10 grand per night, and then the ensemble gets 460 pounds per week for 8 shows. So the gap is huge, and in Finland it's much more equal.
Well, I think that's a reflection of the societies in general, because obviously, because we were joking at the beginning, I can't remember if it was on or off air, but the socialized healthcare, right? It's the universal healthcare where everyone shares, and in Canada, we're kind of between the States and the way you guys are, and in
Yeah,
the States
yeah.
it's completely different, right? It's individuals, and I'm pretty sure any actor listening from the States to what you just said got very excited. Equal pay,
Yeah.
what? And any producers are hearing, no, this is terrible. All this stuff. It's very interesting. How is, and maybe has it changing, how is the public who funds all this, how do they feel about funding it? Or is this just a normal thing, or is that attitude changing as well?
I think the tax rate is quite high in Finland overall, so people don't even realize what they are funding, because we are funding everything with our taxes. So many fields in society, like healthcare and education and culture and everything.
If I remember correctly, right now they are trying to lobby this thing that 1% of our taxes would go into culture.
Culture,
so
yes.
we don't even have 1%.
Yeah.
Even
So,
well, still,
yeah.
but still, so it's less than 1% of all the taxes that go into theater. But still, I would say that we have a universal theater care. That's the, so that we get paid by the state, and the ticket prices are low enough for everyone to go to afford to go to theater.
I love that. Universal theater care. I think every person on earth needs universal theater care.
Yeah.
Oh, go on.
Yeah, no, I was just saying that even though I was talking about the explosive theater ticket rates, at the same time we have system for those who are not capable of paying it. For example, in the one theater that I'm doing this play, Huomenna minä lähden, tomorrow I'll be gone. It's translation in English. It's like a Finnish version of Kristina from Duvemåla, if you know that musical. So or the similar story that my character is going to a United States to find a new life in the beginning of World War I. And so for example, to that play, you can come and see it by using your library card. So it's
just
like
by showing it.
Yeah.
That's
yeah.
awesome.
And we have all these kind of things to.
Well, I have the museum card, so I pay, I think it's something like 86 euros per year, and every museum in Finland is free for me. So it's like an old museum pass.
I have the museum,
and also or every art galleries
user.
and
That's something we could definitely learn from. Oh my
every
goodness,
art gallery, every
Jean
museum.
And then we have
figure that out with the libraries.
Yeah, and then we have these programs with schools. Like each year, all the 8th graders get to come and see plays for free. We are like they are testing. They're called art testers. Yeah, so we have this kind of program for
that program has had a little bit of criticism, because a lot of theaters put the 8th graders only into shows that aren't selling. So
really?
They are not. They have not been putting them to see the new musical or the hit comedy. They've been putting them into the shows that aren't selling anyway. So basically they're just repelling a lot of future theater goers. So but that's not in every theater, but in some theaters there's been some criticism, but still it's a good idea that every 8th grader at some point goes to a theater. So it's a good idea.
Oh, for sure. I love all these concepts. I'm all about so many people over here like taxes are too high, taxes are high, blah blah. I'm like, you know what? If you take my money, if you're using it for something useful or it's going in the right place, like education, healthcare, the arts, and that sort of thing, take my money, everybody will be better. It's a very rare thing over here in the West to think about that, but I love the concept over there. I want to switch it and say, I know, Reeta, you were in a new musical, and over there, who are some of the up and coming, if the musical theater scene, the writers and composers and shows that are coming along and will be in 10 years, the ones that will be coming over to Broadway and the West End, maybe.
What shows? Which shows?
Shows or creators and things like that.
Well, of course, Johanna Telander's Kalevala.
Absolutely.
No question. Even though it's more of an American musical than a Finnish musical, but still.
She's ahead of the game. She's already, she's the trendsetter. So.
Yeah.
And I've heard that there have been there's been some lobbying. There was a big show, I'd say maybe 4 years ago, called Tom of Finland.
Yeah.
Yeah, they've been lobbying if that would happen in New York, and I think it actually could have a chance with writers Tuomas Parkkinen and composer Jussi Vahvaselkä.
And
if you've
also there
ever
was the Heikki Saarmanto musical that got 150,000 euros from the Cultural Institute a couple of years ago. I forget the name of it.
Whatever
I think it was
happened to
Mono
that?
in Manhattan.
Whatever happened to that? We've heard
We
about
won't,
it.
yeah, we won't talk about that. I'm not sure. I feel like if I say something, I'll get in trouble because I'm not sure. So it would just be a guessing game. But
Okay.
they were here trying out their wings, and I know that they did a stage reading and possibly even a workshop, and I'd be interested in hearing what happened to that. But yes, you're right. I have heard of Tom of Finland and the Mano in Manhattan as well.
Yes.
Well, I'd say
And then
that
of course I think that there are some like interesting directors and actors
yes,
that
definitely,
are wanting to come over and
I'd say
work
the whole thing has changed so much in the past 10 years. Let's say that 10 years ago, there were, for example, a lot of theater directors who were interested in musicals, but that wasn't their like 100% day job. It was more like sometimes I can do a musical, but usually I do just plain as theater. Sorry about my language. But and also with actors, the same thing, that we had actors that could sing, but that wasn't like their main job. It was acting. So that has changed so much. And also composers who were doing, they were composing a lot of stuff, and sometimes maybe even a musical. But now we have people who only conduct musicals, only compose musicals, only write musicals. You know, that it's been up and coming. So I'd say that, ask me that same question 10 years from now, then I will have a lot of probably people who I could recommend their reference to.
But I actually want to insert my own agenda here, if I may, please.
Sure.
Since we talked about this, I think this is a really important thing, and I think it needs to be said and it needs to be heard. In Finland, now at the cusp of this new revolution that you're on, you know, musical theater revolution, but at the cusp of a new modern age, I do think that if we wanted to take our art abroad, there has to be an understanding and a support for those that want to be trailblazing and that want to take their art abroad. There has to be an understanding that it is worth supporting. You know, it's beautiful and it's wonderful and it's incredible making Finnish art in Finland. I'm not saying that that's a bad thing. It's a wonderful thing. But the idea of being more universal and making art that reaches people across the borders, maybe in the West End or the US, I find, and maybe I'm wrong, but I do find that a lot of times there's this attitude that we are taking away from the Finnishness instead of being the ambassadors of Finnish culture, bringing it abroad. We've seen this just in our development stage a little bit. I'm not going to point fingers, but we have seen that. So I feel like we have such great composers and writers and actors and performers. We do have a lot to give. So were we wanting to take it somewhere else, having the support of our countrymen would be a positive and wonderful thing to see. So for instance, I find that in individual conversations here and there, often people say, well, you know, you're not really Finnish. You know, you're not really Finnish. You're doing this thing over there that has nothing to do with us. And I'm like, well, actually, I speak Finnish. There's Finnish in the musical. It's based on a Finnish national epic poem.
Yes.
We are as Finnish as can get. And you have to understand that it is valuable that I went abroad to do this and to try to combine cultures and to bring some Finnishness into a culture that I've also adapted. But I think that this is essential for anyone that goes abroad, is to not only have the support of their Finnish countrymen and their colleagues, but also to understand that things like this take time, and you can't have a completely finished product just be plopped somewhere else. There has to be a combined effort and understanding and respect between two cultures, whatever the culture may be where you want to go. So that's okay. That's my agenda. Now I've set my piece. But what do you two think of that?
I definitely get what you're talking about. I think that there's this type of Finnish state of mind that it might be because of still the uncertainty or the maybe our history, because we have always been quite isolated and alone because of our language that is so difficult and rare, and no one else speaks it in the world. And then when someone gets to cross the border and gets their thing abroad and is heard by someone else than just our Finnish little nation, then there is a little bit envy maybe, and even like,
Also,
okay, you go do your thing, but you're not one of us anymore, or something like that. This mentality, which is very weird, but it's
let's say we've seen it before, that someone goes abroad and people are just saying like, what does he or she think about himself doing that? Like, he's a complete
kind of
idiot.
like already,
He's gonna make us look ridiculous. And then when they make it, they're like, we've always supported this dude or gal. We've always been.
They're almost waiting for the person to fail and come back.
That's true. No.
But then when they make it, they're like, yes, Finland, go Finland.
I remember
they're
this
taking
Finnish
the credit for themselves, even though they didn't give any support in the beginning.
So we had this great actor called Peter Frantzen, who, let's say, more than 10 years ago, he decided he wanted to take a shot on Hollywood. So he moved to LA. He really didn't get a job there. I think it was the language barrier was a little bit too high, because most of us Finnish people, we all have accents that are kind of recognizable, and they don't like that in Hollywood unless you're from Sweden. No envy here. But so he ended up working as a limousine chauffeur. And people were making fun about him. Like, what did he think about himself? He went to Hollywood. He didn't make it, and he's driving now all those celebrities around as a driver. Isn't he ashamed of himself? Well, at some point he came back to Finland, or I think he lives in France right now. And then he got cast in Vikings as King Harold. And everyone was like, we've always believed he's been our number one actor always. We've always believed him. And it's so great to have an international star who knows what he's doing. I'm like, don't you remember what you guys were saying 2 years ago?
Exactly.
You're making fun of him. Wow. And then when he gets cast, everyone is so proud of him. He is a really great actor. He's always been. Even when he was a limo driver, he was still a great actor.
This is
and same thing with Jasper. Yeah.
Yes, Jasper Backlund. But I just wanted to put a side comment in here, because you hit a really good topic here, which is here in the US, and probably the same in Canada. Jean-Paul, maybe you can talk about that, but it's completely normal to have more than a couple of jobs. It's completely normal to have some hustling jobs. People are on Broadway and they still keep their Starbucks barista jobs on the side. So it's not an either or kind of scenario. But I do think that in Finland, if you are an actor, that is your job. You maybe it's okay to teach, right? Reeta, Mikael, that kind of thing. But the idea of the limousine driver was a strange concept, I think, for people.
And also, I did see that also in here when I let's say between 2015 and 17, I wasn't working that much in theater. I was doing bartending, which is probably the most basic job for an actor ever. So I was working in a jazz nightclub. I did that for maybe 3.5 years. Of course, I went to auditions. Sometimes I got a job, sometimes I didn't. But I remember seeing some colleagues when they got to that same jazz club in a premiere party, and they had this like sorry face on. Like, I'm so sorry you had to like, you gave up. Like, I didn't give up. Just doing a side job here. I'm like, I gotta pay rent. Like, and they were like, okay, so I guess you're not acting anymore. Like, what the hell, dude? Of course I'm acting.
How is it in Canada? Is it the same as here, where side hustles are part of core?
Everybody, you have to pay your rent, like you said, Mikael. It's just, you got to find something, and it's totally accepted here. We know if you don't have a side job as an actor, it's more surprising. Right.
It's odd, right?
Yeah. It's like, you're living off of your talent. That's congratulations. I don't know how you did it, but awesome. So, totally normal. But I'd love to know.
Also, it's also question about this our social welfare thing that we get some funds from the government to aid us when we are unemployed, when we're not doing a show. So that makes it possible for some people to not be working in between shows or not doing 2 jobs at the same time. It's also because of that. And then people think that it's away from your true profession if you do something else. It's also this mindset. Yeah.
Interesting. I want to ask one more thing about schooling, because there doesn't seem to be, and at least I couldn't find a lot of schooling for musical theater in post-secondary and things like that. Am I wrong, or what's it like for the schooling system?
Well, we have 2 master's degree actor schools here. So, and it's, I don't know if these numbers are big or small there, but let's say from the Helsinki one, which is, I think, a bit bigger than the Tampere one. The Helsinki one, they have usually about 1,000 applicants a year, and they take 12. So 6 guys and 6 girls. But now in the world where non-binary is also included, they don't do the 6 guys, 6 girls anymore, but just 12 students. And then the Tampere one takes once every 2 and 3 years. So they have like 2 classes always at the same time. It's a 5-year master's degree. And they've been now dabbling with the Sibelius Academy, the Helsinki one, about like giving like master's courses from music theater. I think Reeta has something to do with it. Right?
Yes, I've been teaching.
You've been teaching there
for 3 years, and
you won't get a degree as a musical actor.
It's still not a master program of its own. It's like this side program that you can do. You can combine it to your actor's degree in the master phase of it, and then or to your dance degree or to your music degree. So it's a collaboration of the arts universities in Helsinki. So we have Sibelius Academy, Theatre Academy, and then the Academy of Arts.
So these are the master's options. So, and then with the bachelor ones, I went to school in Lahti. So I got the bachelor degree in music theater. That was explicitly in musical theater. And right now we got defunded. Very sad about that. Like I'd say 5 years ago, the school took its last breath. But then they started. Then this school in Tampere is now.
And I've
heard that it's improved a lot. So it's a bit similar. So you get a bachelor degree in music, and you are specialized in musical theater.
Musical theater, but it's still a Bachelor of Music. It's not, whatever.
So that's what I am.
So we are still missing our like own master degree in musical theater in Finland, and that's why I went, after I did my master's in Sibelius Academy, I went to Royal Academy of Music, where they had this Department of Musical Theatre, as they do in most countries. But not
We're
here.
still waiting for that. But because of that, let's say that my first audition, like to professional theater, was to West Side Story 12, 13 years ago. And I remember that there were probably 100 people applying for it, and maybe 20 guys. And there were probably for West Side Story 20 guys, so basically everyone got cast. And I remember from that audition that we had singers and we had dancers and we had actors. We didn't even have double threats. We had like everyone was good at one thing. And also most of us were hungover, because we were probably gonna get the job anyway. So nobody was even. And there were so many girls, really rehearsed for it, and I still feel sorry about that time.
So can I tell you this funny anecdote that's probably gonna bite me later, because now I'm saying it on air, but I have to tell you this. So
I want to hear it.
I agree with you on that, from the sense that when I left Finland, I remember wanting to audition for some universities here for their musical theater programs, and Reeta remembers, because we knew each other back then, because we were interested in musical theater. We love to sing, we love to dance, we love to act. We had to go and find those skill sets in different places. So I would go to the gym and I would work out on my own. I would, watch, I don't know, video clips and learn choreography on my own. I would take dance classes, and then I would, find these musical theater books that are the books that you find in regular music stores, and I'd just pick a song randomly. I picked Flower Drum Song. I didn't know what it was about at all. I was just like, it's got a nice melody. I think I'll audition with this song. And I went here thinking I'd done all this extensive research, and I auditioned for my first musical theater university program with Flower Drum Song, with a Chekhov monologue, and in my dance combination audition, someone put olive oil on my dance slippers, thinking that I'm going to be a threat to their audition. So you can just imagine, me with my own homemade choreography training, slipping around. I'm just looking back at it, kind of laughing at how we trained ourselves as musical theater actors then. So all the things that you're saying now, even though there's still ways to go, but there are places to study musical theater. There are places, there is combined efforts in making it possible for students to learn about musical theater. There's incredible teachers like you, Reeta, that can bring your knowledge.
And also, let's say
that. I feel like a grandma,
private,
but I didn't have that.
what was that, musiikkiopisto, private, like
music institutes or
institutes, like where you can take musical theater courses. Like there are dozens of them nowadays. There used to be none. So you can do that. Even in smaller towns, they might have these courses. Like you won't get a degree from it, but still you can like train dancing and singing, acting.
Because I remember when I started my studies at RAM, I realized that these kids had been to stage schools since the age of 3, and we didn't have any stage schools or drama schools in Finland. Like I went to maybe to some like my school's theater. They had some theaters there, and because I was studying in this very weird elite school, Sykki. So they had like this teenager theater, but it was very rare. And then I took like separate dance classes and studied music. But we all have schools that could combine all these 3 things.
Yes, and we all trailblazed in the first pop voice training program ever, because that was new at the time.
Definitely,
that wasn't even a possibility, and we were all very young when we entered that program. So that was kind of a way that was carving its way towards more contemporary music. Music education.
I had completely forgot about that. Mine has been trying to close that off.
No,
a very embarrassing time from my life. I was 13. I just had my voice change going on, and they put me singing Chair. Do you believe in life after love? And I was like, we're going to make a TV show out of this. I've been trying to forget that.
Good times.
Thank you so much. This, I loved learning about, in general, new stuff, but you've opened my eyes to a number of things, and I have no doubt that listeners will hear things and go, why can't we do it that way? Or, they want to learn more about, Johanna, your show, or just theater in general from around the world, because it's musical theater is music, singing, and dance is not just from one country. It's not just from one culture. It is universal. It's just how you interpret it. And I think we all in the States, Canada, Finland, everywhere, it's the same, but we bring our own little flair to it. And I look forward to discovering more from Finnish musical theater and hearing more from the two of you, and as actors, and Johanna as a writer as well. What you're doing, and please stay in touch in the future.
We will,
because I love promoting new works, and if I can start promoting new stuff that nobody knows from Finland, and I love hearing it too. It doesn't matter if I understand the language. Music takes us along, and we can understand what it means. So I want to say thank you to all three of you for coming on today and talking to me and the listeners about all your experiences. So thank you.
Thank
No,
you
thank
so
you.
much.
Thank you for having us. Okay.
Wonderful. All right. We were just speaking with Mikael, Haavisto, Reeta, Vestman, and Johanna Telander about musical theater in Finland. Tune in next week as we'll speak with another guest or guest about their life, love, and passion that is musical theater. I am your host, as always, Jean-Paul Jovanov. And until next time, I'll see you when I see you.